I've just come back from Amsterdam, and you've been looking at the way that they have been tackling this particular problem of vehicle attacks. What can you tell us?
Well, Amsterdam's quite unique. It's flooded with just about everyone, having a great time over there. And what they've done is, I was actually walking through one of the streets there. I was at a news conference. And as I was walking through one of the streets, I actually saw the heavier vehicles being escorted by police to do their particular duty. So whether it was actually bins being emptied or whatever, and then they would lock everything down behind them and lock everything in the front of them as well. So there wasn't any chance that any of these SUVs could actually mount a curb or whatever to get into the actual main city centre.
And is that something that's also being replicated in other European centres?
I don't know, actually. I know that UK have had the Ring of Steel for a long, long time, since the IRA days, where they will stop the actual larger vehicles from getting through. But at the moment now, like the European groups anyway, are ahead of the curve. They're actually looking at just exactly how these bollards can be defeated. So everyone thinks at the end of the day, we'll put the bollards in, job done. Well, quite clearly, it's not the job done. And we're looking at trying ways of actually making sure that these particular areas can't be circumvented.
Now, in the immediate aftermath of this afternoon's incident, we've spoken to bystanders, eyewitnesses, who say essentially they had to decide what to do. Some of them were presented with incorrect information. Some of them were told that there were indeed gunshots further on down the block. And then they took matters into their own hands by actually forcing and prompting people to stay away from the area. We have heard other reports of eyewitnesses and pedestrians in that crossing actually running to the vehicle itself to actually apprehend the driver. People that are caught up in an incident such as this one face a number of choices, probably choices they haven't really thought about until that exact moment. Can you take us through the thinking that people may
I can,
face?
and it's a really interesting concept that we're looking at from a training organisation now. You've heard of the actual fight, flight and fear, okay? Well, what people don't know about is there's another F, and F is freeze. So what happens is an incident like that, within that split second, someone freezes, and that really has an outcome on just exactly what the main outcome is going to happen anyway to them as far as an injury is concerned or whatever. Other people are showing bravado, which is fantastic, okay? You're trying to disengage that particular vehicle and making sure they're trying to grab the individuals out. They don't even know what these individuals have got. They could carry long Bowie knives, they'll be carrying kind of, small arms weapons or whatever. But at the same time, everyone is different. You'll get the people coming forward to try and help out. You'll get the people going straight to the casualties because they may have a medical experience or background or whatever. And you get other people trying to help other people out. So it's a whole mix, really, Kirsty, in that one.
And so I suppose just finally, just asking for your thoughts in the lead up to this holiday season and when people do tend to gather together and group in large numbers, whether it be for Christmas events or New Year's celebrations. Can you offer any advice?
The first advice I can give you really is that, and again, we're teaching this on our training courses and also through our app that we've published, is you must be looking at walking towards vehicles in any particular long area. So going home at night time at the end of the actual New Year's Eve celebration or whatever is checking vehicles out as they're coming towards you. Most people are mowing down because they can't even hear what's going on, so the vehicle will be on them very, very quickly. Travel in pairs if you can, stay safe, so you've got somebody else looking out around you, but stay alert as well. It's great to have a fantastic time, and Sydney's the best place on earth, and Melbourne, but the problem is that, you need to be vigilant at all times because the threat level has gone up.
Tony Loughran from Zero Risk International, thank you for coming in and sharing your thoughts this evening. And we're now going to cross back to Melbourne, where our reporter Richard Willingham joins us from the scene. Now, Richard, let's recap these events for our viewers. Police have said they believe that what took place just after 4:30 this afternoon was a deliberate act, but they do not yet know the motivation.
Yes, that's right. Just after 7 o'clock, the police gave a press conference, a short one at that, and said that, as you just pointed out, this is a deliberate act. They don't know what the motivation is. Let's take a step back. This incident occurred when a white SUV ploughed into pedestrians, should I say, at the corner of Elizabeth and Flinders Street, just behind me, about 150 metres outside the iconic Flinders Street station. 14 people have been injured in that incident and taken to hospital, including a toddler who has a head injury and is at the Royal Children's Hospital, we understand. Now, police are as I said, not ruling out what caused this, but witnesses say the scene was horrific. They said there was blood everywhere. They also reported of loud bangs and that the car sped up as it hit the pedestrians in what is a very, very busy area. Now, police are saying anyone with information, anyone who recorded anything, any eyewitnesses should be heading to the West Melbourne Police Station on Spencer Street on the other side of the city, where counsellors are also present to help people who may be dealing with the shock and the trauma of this incident. Now, 2 people have been arrested, 2 men. That were the driver of the car and a passenger. Witnesses reported that other people, eyewitnesses at the scene, ran to the car when it crashed and pulled these people out and apprehended them. So police and passers-by were able to apprehend these men. Emergency service were very quick to respond, and a big area around Flinders Street and the city has been cordoned off. There's still a very large police presence here, and investigators are working behind us right now.
Richard, police have indicated that they may yet give another update to media this evening, but as they do, could you take a look around for us and just describe the crime scene now and what is taking place?
Well, we're behind a police cordon. We're about 150 metres. Just down there, the police you can see debris on the ground. There's a few police. They look like traffic accident inspectors. The crime command is actually the ones taking over this investigation. There are a lot more police cars and ambulances behind me earlier. They've slowly pulled away. There's a sort of eerie quiet around this area. Elizabeth Street and Flinders Lane are very busy places in Melbourne. There was a lot of people in the city today, people finishing work for the day, a lot of people in here doing their Christmas shopping, a beautiful 24 degrees. And so this has really shaken Melbourne once again. But now this eerie quiet, there's a big police cordon off area and people are sort of slowly working away from the scene.
Now, police have said that this is a crime scene and it will remain closed for some time. I suppose this means that it could actually extend into tomorrow's business and trading day.
Well, yeah, that's still unclear. They have said that there'll be a strong police presence around the area for the foreseeable future, which could be tonight, could be tomorrow morning. Pretty much the last business day of the year for most people tomorrow, heading into Christmas on Monday. So people have been advised tonight to stay away from Flinders Street Station. If you have to catch a tram or a tram and come into the city, try and avoid this area. I think most people seem to be respecting that. But the incident area is now, it's over to the investigators who are going through with a fine-tooth comb to see what has happened here and what has caused this what the police are calling a deliberate act.
That's our reporter Richard Willingham in Melbourne CBD. Well, these witnesses were in the city when the incident unfolded.
We just got off the train and we just saw like 10 pedestrians on the floor. There was like 3 groups of people surrounding them. And like there was blood and people crying.
And it was just very sad.
Yeah.
It was a sad time.
It was scary because we didn't know what was going on.
Each person that was down, and there was probably about 6 to 8 of them, every single person ended up with 3 or 4 people assisting to, get them in the correct positions and make sure they were okay. And then there was probably about another 6 to 8 people immediately jumped at the car and started pulling the driver out of the car.
Jim Stupas is the owner of Walker's Donuts in Melbourne on the corner of Elizabeth Street and Flinders Street. He was standing outside his store when the incident took place.
He seemed to be travelling at about 80 to 100 k's down Flinders Street in a westerly direction, and the intersection was full of pedestrians and he just ploughed through the pedestrians. And the only thing that slowed him down was him hitting pedestrians. The first thing that goes through your mind is that it was targeted because there was no braking, there was no slowing down. He went straight through the intersection. So whether it was targeted or whether he'd had a heart attack or was drunk, or I don't know. But, it could have been just a garden variety drunkard that just went through an intersection. But there was no braking or any slowing down at all. He probably hit about 15 to 20 pedestrians. The car stopped because of just, I think, the amount of pedestrians that it had hit, and then he came to rest just next to the tram stop. So maybe the side of the tram stop stopped him. But the only thing that seemed to be slowing him down was just the amount of pedestrians that he hit. All you could hear was just bang, 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 bang. This is the busiest corner in Melbourne. It's this and then the Swan Street corner, the 2 busiest corners in Melbourne. It was packed. Our stores were packed. The pedestrians crossing the road was completely packed. It was like solid with people. So very, very, very busy in the whole area, and all you could hear was just the sound of the car hitting people and the screams. Literally, within 1 minute, I heard sirens. It was just. Funnily enough, there was some drug-addled gentleman that was next to the store, and I was ringing 000 at the time for him. So, then I hung up on that call, then rang 000, but already ambulances were starting to be in, or police cars were being in attendance. We've got fire services here, police, fire ambulance, heaps of detectives around. So it's been cordoned off completely. The whole area from the Swanston Street block, one block up to Flinders Lane, has all been cordoned off. The whole area has been shut down.
Another eyewitness was crossing Flinders Street when the incident happened. Here's David's account.
I was crossing Flinders Street on the way to the train station. I heard an engine rev behind me. I heard a thump. I turned around and saw the white SUV streaming through the intersection, and just seeing people literally getting thrown into the air as it hit them. It then went through the intersection within a second or two, and then went ploughing straight into the tram stop where it came to a dead halt. I jumped quickly off the road because I was on the road at the time, and by the time I sort of went to quickly check and see if I could go and give them an assistance, there was already people, sort of 3 or 4 people around every person that had been hit, already rendering assistance as they could. So I immediately called 000 to report the incident. The crossing's probably one of the main 2 crossings that people use to get to Flinders Street in the afternoon after work. So it would have easily been between 40 and 60 people crossing the road at the time when it happened. So the fact that I personally saw probably between 6 and 8 people on the ground afterwards, it seems pretty lucky that there wasn't a lot more that were actually hit.
David, police have arrested the driver of the car. Were you a witness to that arrest?
Yeah, so immediately after the car hit the tram stop, probably about 8 to 10 people immediately ran to the car and opened the door and actually started pulling the driver out. I didn't see too much directly after that because I was describing the injuries to 000 at the time, so I was actually looking at the people on the ground. But when I was asked to move on after the police arrived, probably only about 2 or 3 minutes later, I did notice that they were actually cuffing the driver on the road. So yeah, it was arrested fairly quickly.
And when you say 8 to 10 people rushed to this vehicle, which had come to a standstill next to the tram stop, do you mean ordinary bystanders? We're not talking police or any other emergency responders, regular bystanders, perhaps people who were crossing the street at the time?
Correct, yeah. So at that point, there was no emergency services at all. So all the people that were being assisted, well, that were assisting the injured and actually looking to stop the person potentially getting away were all just bystanders, people crossing the street or waiting at the tram stop at the time that it happened. Yeah, I suppose it showed sort of the range of emotions that people have in the situation. Some people, typically the ones that were rendering assistance, were obviously very calm. They just ran to do what they could and obviously sort of went into almost an autopilot, I guess. And there's some people obviously were a lot more distressed and screaming and crying and that sort of thing. There was one girl that I was standing next to while we were waiting to give our statements to the police that was sort of in tears and shaking a bit from the shock, and that seemed to be quite a few people sort of just kind of partially frozen on the side of the road, just sort of getting moved on as the police started roping off the area.
How would you describe the emergency response effort, David?
It was extremely fast. The police were there, I'd say, within 2 to 3 minutes, and the ambulances were probably only a minute or 2 behind them. They were immediately taking charge of the situation. They didn't sort of remove the people that were already assisting. They let them continue to help until the paramedics actually arrived. So they seemed to take control of the situation, but sort of allow people that were already helping to continue to do so.
And were you able to gauge the extent of people's injuries?
So I had as I said, I was describing them to 000 at the time, so I was actually walking around to each person. Out of the about 6 that I saw up close, 3 or 4 was conscious. Some talking, one sitting up. So their injuries didn't seem too extreme, obviously, from what I could see. There was a couple of unconscious people that were being in a coma position by people that were rendering assistance. People weren't performing CPR, so I assumed that they were breathing. There was one person at the actual tram stop, so would have been hit just before the car, or as the car was hitting the tram stop, seemed the most injured. And I only saw that one from a distance, but there was probably significantly more blood on the road on the tram stop from that one than from the others that I saw.
And from your position now, you can see that the area has basically been closed off.
I've actually caught the tram home, so I'm not there, the train home. I'm not actually there anymore. But when I left, it had been closed. The entire entrance to the station had been closed off. As I was walking into the station, they were directing everyone to the other exit via Swanston Street, and they'd closed off both directions on Flinders Street and for people coming down Elizabeth Street. So the entire intersection was closed.
Let's go to our reporter Emma Younger now, who is at the Alfred Hospital in Melbourne. Emma, what do we know about those who've been injured?
Well, police say that 14 people were injured in that incident on Flinders Street earlier this evening. Now, we know that at least 13 people were taken to hospital. That's our latest update from Ambulance Victoria. Of those 13, at least 3 were brought here to the Alfred Hospital, and another 3 were taken to the Royal Melbourne Hospital on the other side of the city. Now, we know some were in a critical condition, others in a serious condition, but we haven't been given an update on the nature of their injuries. A child was also injured. A child aged under 5 was taken to the Royal Children's Hospital with a head injury in a serious condition.
Emma, we're waiting on police to give an update on the situation. Are you expecting medical teams there to update you throughout the evening?
No, at this stage, all the hospitals and now Ambulance Victoria are referring reporters to Victoria Police. So all the information tonight will be coming from Victoria Police, and they haven't indicated at this stage when they will be able to give us an update. Of course, this did happen just hours ago, and it was quite a chaotic scene. There were people being worked on at that scene by paramedics for quite a lengthy amount of time. And of course, all of their families will also need to be notified. I'm sure many of them will be coming to hospitals across the city tonight to visit and give support and comfort their loved ones who have been injured in this tragic incident.
That's our reporter Emma Younger reporting for us outside the Alfred Hospital in Melbourne. Well, let's recap our top story now and talk about what we do know. 14 people have been injured, with several in a critical condition after a vehicle ploughed into pedestrians near Flinders Street station in central Melbourne. 2 people have been arrested, including the driver of the vehicle. Police are yet to say whether the incident is terrorism related, but they say they believe it was a deliberate act. They're asking for witnesses to come forward.
Police arrived at the scene within minutes and have arrested 2 men. At this stage, we have 14 people injured and several are critical. At this stage, we believe it is a deliberate act. Can I repeat that? At this stage, we believe it is a deliberate act. However, we do not know the motivation, and it is still early stages of the investigation. Police and emergency services will remain on scene for the foreseeable future. Crime Command have primacy of the investigation, and we are requesting people to avoid the area. Can I repeat that? The crime scene will be in place for a considerable period of time, and we are urging people who can avoid the area to avoid the area. Police will continue to have a strong presence in the Melbourne CBD tonight. People may have items and vehicles within the crime scene. At this stage, they will not be able to be retrieved until the crime scene is reopened. We understand that this has been a very traumatic event, and there will be witnesses, victims and family members affected. Anyone who witnessed the incident is urged to attend the Spencer Street Police Station at 313 Spencer Street, Melbourne, to make a statement. Welfare services are present at that location. We encourage anyone with any other information to contact Crime Stoppers.
Have you been able to get any information from the two men at this point?
It's still too early in the investigation to gain any understanding of motivation.
Have they been charged at this stage?
No, they haven't.
Have you ruled out terror as a motivation?
At this stage, it's early days in the investigation and the motivation is unknown.
That was police speaking about 90 minutes ago, and we have been told that they may be updating us again this evening. We'll bring it to you when it happens. Here is how some of the witnesses who saw this incident unfold have described the chaotic scenes.
I was crossing Flinders Street on the way to the train station. I heard an engine rev behind me. I heard a thump. I turned around and saw the white SUV streaming through the intersection, and just seeing people literally getting thrown into the air as it hit them. It then went through the intersection within a second or two, and then went ploughing straight into the tram stop, where it came to a dead halt.
It was just a horrific scene of bodies were sort of thrown into the air, and there was that colliding noise with lots of things.
Yeah, I heard the impact I actually heard inside my office. Then next thing I heard screaming and came running straight outside, and looking straight down the road, I just saw a car which looked like it was a bit busted up, and some pedestrians sprawled out all over the concrete. It was pretty shocking to see, that's for sure. Emergency services, they were there like in an instant. It was amazing. So, commend them. They were there so quick.
The Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, has reacted to this afternoon's incident. He's tweeted, as our federal and state police and security agencies work together to secure the scene and investigate this shocking incident, our thoughts and prayers are with the victims and the emergency and health workers who are treating them. The opposition leader Bill Shorten has also tweeted, shocking scenes in Melbourne this afternoon, he writes. Credit to first responders who are doing us proud once again, thinking of everyone caught up in this atrocity. The Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews has also made a statement via the social media platform Twitter. He says, as you will know, there's been a horrible incident on Flinders Street. Police have secured the scene and will provide information as it's confirmed. Please avoid the area. Trains running, but trams affected. Stay safe, check on your loved ones, and thank you to our brave emergency services. Chris Miller from Victoria Road says people should avoid Melbourne CBD if possible this evening.
Flinders Street obviously closed to traffic now. We do have diversions in place at the moment, set up at Russell Street on the eastern side and at Queensbridge Street on the western side. Obviously, Elizabeth Street is also closed. That's blocked between Burke and Flinders Streets. Traffic headed north towards the city up St Kilda Road. At this moment, to stop outside the Arts Centre, the advice would be to use Southbank Boulevard. Even better, use Toorak Road, and if you are headed towards the city from those Bayside suburbs, you'd be better off on Queens Road up onto Kingsway there. For people trying to get east-west or west-east across the city, we're advising people to use streets north of Collins Street, so that would include Lonsdale, Latrobe Street, also Victoria Street. At this stage, thankfully, it would seem that most motorists have been advised from authorities, and conditions have certainly eased through the Melbourne CBD. Obviously, as the incident unfolded, we had some very heavy traffic. It was at the time, obviously, when people were getting out of work and lots of Christmas shopping going on. But thankfully, it seems that congestion has eased. Things the worst of at the moment would be headed south along Russell and Exhibition Streets. Queensbridge Street is also reasonably congested, but I think people should be able to manage okay. And obviously we echo the advice from the police to defer travel, if at all possible, around the Melbourne CBD for this evening. And these diversions are set up and controlled by Victoria Police, so we'll obviously be following their advice. But at this stage, obviously, it's closed, and I think it will be for most of the evening, as we've just heard in that press conference. So if people can avoid the CBD for this evening, that's probably the best advice.
And just a quick update now on Yarra trams, who say due to that major incident, service changes are affecting trams in the CBD. Passengers are asked to avoid the Flinders Street and Elizabeth Street area. They say updates will be provided by the website. Now, I'm joined again in the studio by Tony Loughran, a security analyst at Zero Risk International. Tony, cities all around the world really are on alert for this type of incident, damage caused by a single vehicle.
Absolutely. I think that as soon as you started to see Westminster attack itself on the bridge there, using commercial vehicles to actually kind of, mow down people, everyone has gone on to high alert, and they've realised at the end of the day the terrorist organisations are not just going to use a standard format. They're going to morph into something else, but the vehicle itself has become the choice of weapon, I suppose, the way you want to call it. But they have, yeah, absolutely.
And of course, police in Melbourne are saying that while they understand and believe that this incident this afternoon was a deliberate act, they're not yet saying what the motive could be. They have not ruled out terror, however. But just in relation to vehicle accidents, for how long now have we been recognising that this indeed is a threat?
It's quite a few years now. I think that many years ago, if you looked at Glasgow, with the actual individual put his vehicle with liquid petroleum gas cylinders into the airport, we're talking about 6 or 7 years ago. So that really was the start of something quite fundamental, where there was a shift in how they were going to attack certain areas. And all they're trying to do now is to radicalise individuals to get there. So the attack is on the increase, and it's easy to actually perform.
And that's the point, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It's easy.
Yeah, it is. It's so, you don't need any huge amount of sophistication. You need what we call as a close target recce of the area. So they would have gone in there and had a look around and seen just exactly where their maximum impact would have been, and would have been able to actually position the vehicle to get that devastation as well.